Paradrama Tales.
Have you ever cut ties with your own twin? I didn't just lose a brother, I lost my mirror, but what hurt most wasn't the silence. It was realizing he stood by and watched our mother discard me like I was nothing, and then he asked for a favor. We used to share everything, clothes, toys, even a bed until we were 9. Growing up as twins meant our identities were always tangled. The boys, they called us. Never by name, just a unit. But even back then I knew there was a difference. My mom always smiled wider when he walked in the room. She'd ruffle his hair, ask about his day joke that he was the charming one. And me, I was the quiet one, the one she asked to watch the pot on the stove or take the trash out. Small things. Things you brush off until they build into something bigger. We were about 12 when I first noticed how different the rules were. He'd get a gentle warning when he forgot chores. I'd get grounded. He'd break a window and they'd laugh it off. Boys will be boys. I'd forget to feed the dog and suddenly I was irresponsible and selfish. I didn't understand it then. I thought maybe I just needed to try harder, be more helpful, get better grades, make myself undeniable. But every effort felt invisible. What hit the hardest, though, was the emotional stuff. I'd try to talk to her when school was rough or when I didn't get invited to a party. She'd nod distracted, scrolling through her phone or folding laundry. But when my brother came home with a minor problem, someone teased him in class or he lost his favorite pen, she'd drop everything. She'd fuss, soothe, and baby him. One night, I remember lying awake in the dark, both of us in our beds a few feet apart. I whispered, "Do you think Mom loves you more?" He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe, but she still loves you too, I think." That I think haunted me. Even he wasn't sure. Looking back, I don't blame him for being the favorite. That wasn't his choice. But it shaped us in ways I'm still unpacking. While he floated, I fought to be seen, to matter. And every time she picked him over me, every time she overlooked me, I swallowed it, thinking maybe tomorrow would be different. It never was. By the time we hit 16, the differences weren't just emotional, they were financial, physical, public. That year, my twin got a brand new car for his birthday. Not a hand-me-down or some beat-up clunker. No shiny silver still smelling like the dealership. A red bow on top. My mom filmed the whole thing for Facebook, complete with fake tears and captions like, "Proud Mama moment." And me, I got a card. No, not a gift card, just a folded piece of paper that said, "We're proud of who you're becoming." No car, no bow, no Facebook post, just silence. I told myself it didn't matter. I was used to the imbalance by then. Used to him getting the attention, the support, the benefit of every doubt. But what I wasn't used to, what I never expected, was to be told I couldn't stay. It started after an argument. My twin had crashed the car, nothing major, just a dented bumper. But instead of owning up to it, he told them it was my fault. He claimed I had taken the car without asking. I was stunned, speechless. I thought he was joking, but he looked me dead in the eye and didn't blink. And the worst part, they believed him. Leonard, our stepdad, paced the kitchen like he was in a courtroom. "We can't have dishonesty in this house," he said. My mom folded her arms and added, "You've been disrespectful for months." I begged them to listen. "Check the cameras," I said. "Ask the neighbors." They didn't care. Leonard pointed to the door. "It's time you learned what consequences feel like." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went to my room, packed a duffel bag, and walked out. That night, I slept at a friend's house. The next day, I moved in with my aunt. She didn't ask for explanations, just hugged me and said, "You've got a place here for as long as you need." Meanwhile, my twin kept the car, kept the bedroom, kept the lie. I used to think we were halves of the same whole. But in that moment, I realized we weren't equals. We never had been. And I wasn't just kicked out of a house. That day I was cut out of a family photo. I was never really part of. For the first few weeks after I left, I bounced. Friend to friend, couch to couch, carrying my life in a single duffel bag and a backpack full of textbooks. I kept going to school like nothing had changed because I refused to let the people who gave up on me decide how my story ended. There were nights I stayed up studying in gas stations just to stay warm. I'd shower at the YMCA before heading to class. And still, I showed up. On time. Homework done. I wasn't trying to be a hero, I was just trying to survive. My aunt did what she could. She let me stay over as much as her small apartment would allow. But she had 2 kids of her own, and money was tight. Still, she always found a way to cook me something warm. Sometimes she'd slip a 20 into my coat pocket and pretend not to notice when I tried to give it back. She never asked questions. She just looked me in the eye and said, "Don't let them win." I didn't. I applied to every scholarship I could find. I wrote essays at 2 a.m., fueled by black coffee and quiet rage. I interviewed in secondhand clothes, my shoes duct taped on the inside. But I got in. I got in. College was my clean slate. I moved into that dorm with nothing but a single suitcase and a cheap laptop I'd saved up for by working double shifts at a fast food joint. I had no rug, no decorations, no mini fridge, but I had a bed and a key and 4 concrete walls that for the first time in a long time were mine. No one knew my story on campus. I was just the quiet kid from out of town. But inside, I carried the fire of every night I spent being forgotten. I wasn't there to party. I wasn't there to fit in. I was there to make sure no one could ever tell me I didn't deserve to be somewhere again. People say college is where you find yourself. I didn't find anything. I built, piece by piece, scar by scar. And every time I looked at my student ID, I thought, they said I wasn't worth the effort, but I made it anyway. It had been nearly 5 years since I'd seen my twin when I got the call our grandmother had passed. She was the only one in our family who ever treated me like I mattered, even when I was just the invisible son in a house that only had room for one golden child. She'd send care packages to my dorm granola bars, handwritten notes, $5 bills tucked into folded socks. That was love. And I wasn't going to miss her funeral, even if it meant standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who acted like I no longer existed. I showed up early wearing the only suit I owned, clean pressed but secondhand. As I walked in, heads turned, whispers began. It wasn't a welcome, it was surprise, discomfort. Like a ghost had entered the church. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes, my father barely nodded. But my twin, he just stared like he'd forgotten we shared the same face. When they opened the floor for family to speak, I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I told the room what she meant to me, not just as a grandmother, but as the only one who called me every birthday without fail, who believed in me when no one else did. I didn't say much, but it was enough. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, my twin approached me. He had tears in his eyes. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I did," I replied, "for her, not for you." He looked down, then said something I didn't expect. I didn't know how bad it really was. I laughed not out of humor, but disbelief. "You lived in the same house. I thought you were just being dramatic," he muttered. That's when I realized he hadn't just chosen to ignore me. He'd rewritten the past in his own mind, made me the villain in a story that left him guiltless. And maybe that was easier than facing the truth, that while he got cars and birthday trips, I got eviction and silence. We stood in silence for a moment. Then I said, "You can pretend we had the same childhood, but we didn't attend the same house. I lived in the cracks." And just like that, I walked away. Not out of bitterness, but clarity. Sometimes funerals bury more than bodies. Sometimes they bury illusions. A few weeks after the funeral, I got an email from my grandmother's attorney. It was unexpected. I hadn't thought about her estate. Honestly, I figured she didn't have much. A modest pension, maybe a little savings. But the email wasn't about money. It was an invitation to the reading of her will. I wasn't sure I wanted to go. What could possibly be in that will for me? But some part of me, maybe the little boy who used to help her bake cookies in her yellow kitchen, needed to hear her name one more time. Needed to believe she remembered me even in death. The lawyer's office was small but neat. My brother was already there when I arrived, dressed sharp in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He didn't say a word. Neither did my parents. They acted like I was interrupting something, like I didn't belong. The reading started simply a few donations to charities, a keepsake for an old friend. Then the lawyer paused. To my grandson he read, "Who knows what it means to fight alone? I leave my journals and the photograph albums from my side of the family. I hope he sees how proud I always was of him." That was it. No money, no property. Just memories. Then came the real blow. To my grandson James, my twin. I leave the house, its contents, and the remaining balance of my savings account, totaling $186,000. I sat there frozen. I wasn't expecting riches, but I hadn't expected to be erased again. My twin didn't even flinch. My parents looked satisfied, as if balance had been restored. And I just stared at the floor, trying not to let the heat behind my eyes spill out in front of them. After the meeting, I pulled the lawyer aside. Did she really leave nothing else for me? He hesitated. She tried, he said quietly, but your mother contested the earlier draft, said you were estranged, said it would cause family tension. She pushed for changes. Your grandmother was tired. She agreed reluctantly. So that was it. Even after death, my mother managed to reach back and take something from me. But you know what? That box of journals turned out to be more valuable than any dollar sign. Because in her handwriting, I found something I'd been missing my whole life. Someone who had seen me, really seen me. It was about 3 months after the will reading when I got the call. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. It was my brother, James. His voice was calm, even polite, like we were old friends catching up, instead of strangers who once shared a crib. Hey, he said, I've got kind of a weird ask. I waited. Turns out the house, my grandmother's house, now his had some issues. Leaky pipes, cracked foundation, a tree leaning too close to the roof. He wanted to renovate, maybe even flip it. And he wanted me to co-sign a loan with him. Said I had better credit and a stable job. Said it was just a formality. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. He got the house, he got the money, he got every benefit of the doubt, and now he wanted my name to carry the weight. Why would I do that? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Because we're family. Because you always helped everyone even when you had nothing. It's who you are. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't complimenting me. He was counting on me being the same doormat I'd always been. The helpful twin. The one who took the couch while he got the car. The one who got erased from the will, but still showed up with a kind smile. I'm not that guy anymore, I said quietly. You'll have to figure it out without me. He didn't yell, didn't beg, just said, wow, cold, and hung up. I sat there for a long time after that. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Not really. The favor didn't break me. The expectation did. The way they all assumed I'd always say yes. That I should say yes, just to keep the peace. Just to prove I was still the good one. But I realized something important that day. Saying no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. I walked outside, stood in the cold with my coffee, and felt the kind of lightness I hadn't known in years. For the first time in my life, my no wasn't an apology. It was a boundary. And boundaries are how you build a real life, not just survive the old one. There's this idea that family estrangement is always tragic. That no matter what happened, blood should pull you back in. That the door should always stay open even if all they ever did was walk in and take. I used to believe that. I used to think I was broken for keeping my distance. That not calling on holidays made me cold. That silence was cruelty. But over time, I began to understand something no one tells you. Estrangement when earned can be a gift. After the call with James, I expected guilt. I waited for it like a flu I knew was coming, but it never arrived. Instead, what settled in was a strange quiet peace. A morning without tension. A weekend without scanning my phone for guilt-laced texts. A life where I didn't flinch every time someone said, "So, how's your family?" I used to think family meant obligation. Now, I believe it should mean choice. You choose who gets access, who gets your time, your energy, your future, and when someone's only connection to you is the version of you they can use, they don't deserve the newer one you've become. Friends started asking about James less. I stopped bringing him up. The photos came down. The stories got quieter. I wasn't erasing the past, I was releasing it. And in doing so, I created room for something better. I started hosting small dinners, letting people in, real friends, Amanda, colleagues, neighbors who once just waved but now stayed for pie. We'd sit laugh swap stories, and no one asked why I didn't invite my twin. No one needed to. They understood without it being spoken, because people know. Deep down, they know. You don't walk away from a bond like that for nothing. You do it to save yourself. Some nights I'd catch myself wondering if he thought about me, missed me, hated me. But the truth is it didn't matter, not anymore. I didn't cut off family, I just stopped bleeding for it. And once the bleeding stops, healing finally begins. Estrangement isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's a beginning with better boundaries and better people waiting on the other side. It showed up in my mailbox on a Thursday. No return address, just my name in blocky handwriting. I almost tossed it, assuming it was junk or one of those passive-aggressive HOA notices. But something told me to open it. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, wide-ruled, slanted letters. It read, "Hi. You don't know me, but I'm your niece. My name's Lila. I found your name online when I was doing a family tree project for school. My dad doesn't talk about you much, but Grandma said you used to be twins. She also said you were the smart one. I hope that's okay to say. I just wanted to say, I hope you're doing okay. I wish I had an uncle like you growing up. Maybe you're mad at Dad, but I'm not him. I just thought you should know I exist. I must have read it 10 times before I put it down. That was James's daughter. I didn't even know he had one. And here she was writing to a stranger she'd never met, not asking for money, not begging for favors, just reaching out. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to feel something beyond the ache. A week passed. Then I wrote back. I told her thank you, that her words meant more than she probably understood. I didn't dive into history or betrayals, I just asked her how her family tree project went. Told her I liked her name, that was all. She replied. Then I did. Slowly over weeks, a gentle correspondence grew. No pressure, no family politics. Just a kid and a man once known as an uncle talking about favorite books and pizza toppings. Meanwhile, something else had begun shifting in my life. Amanda's brother invited me to coach his daughter's little league team. Her mom started calling me to ask how my day was. These weren't obligations, they were invitations. Earned, offered freely. I was no longer the ghost at someone else's table. I had a seat, a voice, a place. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't clinging to a broken branch of a family tree. I had planted a new one. It didn't grow the way I thought it would. It wasn't symmetrical or tidy. But it was rooted in respect, in kindness, in people who didn't wait until I walked away to say, you matter. And that's the family I chose. I used to think family was about obligation, blood, birthdays, showing up even when it hurt. I thought if I gave enough, bent enough, forgave enough, maybe one day they'd turn around and say, we see you now. We're sorry. They never did. And here's the truth. I wish someone had told me sooner. You don't owe the people who erased you. You don't owe them your silence. You don't owe them explanations. And you certainly don't owe them your peace. When someone shows you repeatedly that your presence is only welcome when it's convenient or profitable, that is not family. That is a transaction. Choosing distance wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Because sometimes survival means stepping back, and healing means stopping the performance of being the good one, just to keep the dysfunction alive. These days I don't need applause for setting boundaries. I don't need revenge. What I have is quieter, stronger. A partner who sees me. A niece who reached across bloodlines to connect. And a chosen family who doesn't ask me to earn my place at the table. If you're listening to this, and your story sounds even a little like mine, maybe it's time to stop waiting for an apology that isn't coming. Maybe it's time to start living like your peace matters more than their approval. And if that hits home, stick around. Because the next story, it's about finding strength in the silence and learning to speak up again, for yourself,